Alright, Halloween Hangover 2022. This is a funny one because I'm just going to get into it before I get into it. I had promised on Facebook my first comeback episode would be on the Ghostbusters video game, and I recorded it 2 or 3 times at least, and I just was not happy with the results. Something about it felt like I can't put my tongue on how I'm feeling about this. I feel like if I publish it, I'm going to regret something. Some detail is going to come to mind. I'll be like, that changes everything. So I'm putting that one off until I feel like I have a good grasp on what I want to say about it. Long story short, I like it a lot. It's not a perfect game, but I very much so enjoyed it. Another episode I'm hoping to get to this year is going to be on the Scarlet Gospels, and whether or not I believe it was ghost written, because that is some fans say that, and it's a very interesting theory to me. And I have complicated thoughts on it. I have read the book already, but we'll see what I think rereading it when I'm a more sound mind than in college trying to read it between homework assignments or whatever. But today, in this video, we're going to be discussing the Hellraiser Bloodlines original screenplay by Peter Atkins. Sorry, Peter. So first of all, I didn't know this existed. I'd heard about Hellraiser 4 and the troubled production. I had heard that it was a, Alan Smithy project, which is, of course, when writers and directors don't want their name on a project. Recently on Too Cool for the Comic Shop, we discussed the Dune movies, and that was in some releases an Alan Smithy project for David Lynch, because he was unhappy with the studio edit of the film. And this was, and I think it was for the director, was Alan Smithy on this relationship. I wish that I could find out who directed it without having to cheat, but I think it's Kevin Yeager. Very, very talented special effects artist. Might be getting his name wrong, but whoever actually directed it, I'm a big fan of, even though I don't know their name. And it's very sad what happened here. Now, with this script, I'm going to say this first off. I enjoy Hellraiser 4. I don't think it's perfect. With that said, if you ask me if I wanted to drink a few beers and watch Hellraiser 4, I will say yes just about any day of the week. It's a fun time. It's messy, it's sloppy, it's cheesy. Does it live up to the hype of the first 2 movies? Does it live up to the artistry of the original? No. But I liked a lot of the mythology introduced in the film. I actually, for an in-space movie, I think it's one of the better ones. I think Jason X is a lot of fun. I think this one adds a lot to the table and actually is almost a good movie while doing it, which is very interesting. This original screenplay does not get into space until the 3rd act. In fact, the story separated very distinctly into 3 acts. And that's one of my, I don't want to say my problem with it, but I understand why this script wasn't made into a film. I know all the fans say, oh, well, this is so much better, this is what it should have been, etc., etc. The studio butchered it. I get that completely. I'm not disagreeing. But I do see why some of the changes were made. So the film begins in olden times. I'm very bad with numbers and timelines and stuff, so this isn't going to be my clearest review. But it begins in old times, and you have the toy maker making the lament configuration. I think it's called that. It's been so long since I've watched any of these movies. I saw the 5th one, the one that came after Inferno this year, which I'll probably be discussing at some point as well. But anyhow, he makes it under a commission, and essentially finds out, oh, this was this lady who's had me do this is basically a demon. There's an interesting thing that I like picturing how they would do the special effects as I read the scripts. Basically, she's like a bunch of worms and maggots and stuff, but in human form is almost how it's conveyed visually, which is gross and kind of neat. But yeah, so she's a demon. She's basically the central antagonist of the film, along with Pinhead. You do get the Chatterer dog, or the Hellhound, whatever it's called in the movie. That thing, which I like. Chatterer is my favorite Cenobite, actually. Once you can't say Pinhead. That's like Rocky Balboa is my favorite Rocky character. You can't do that. You don't get to pick Luke Skywalker. maybe you do, because Han's just as cool as Luke and Leia's just as cool as them, but that's like an exception because that's an exceptionally well-written movie. But anyhow, yeah, you get a lot of the same stuff, just in very different contexts. I don't remember if they were in the original film, but there's twins that separate, and then they come together, and they have this kind of like phrase that they say in unison. It's like, I cannot stand to be apart from my brother, as they connect, which is kind of corny, to be honest. I don't need them to talk. It almost reminds me like Station from Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey, which Station's awesome, but I think that was a little bit cheese. So you get to the next segment of the film, and the second act takes place in modern day, and it's an architect. Not just an architect, but it ties in with the third movie. He's the guy who designed it. And this is essentially a cat's cradle kind of trap to trap the Cenobites that he's creating. And you follow him and his family. And one thing I want to point out is that I'm assuming they wanted the same actor to play each of these three roles, with little details like different hair or a mole or something. One wears glasses. It's corny, but I think if you get the right actor, it could have been cool. You know, if you get the right guy, I could have seen it working out, like a Brad Dourif type or someone like that. I don't know. You probably need someone more conventionally handsome, or, you know, more hunky lead or whatever, but that's who I was picturing, especially because of the third incarnation, which is a little bit crazier, at least in my reading of the script. But yeah, so you get that, and they're basically going through a building. There's a woman in an elevator that goes down to hell. It reminded me quite a bit more of the final film product, because that's where we get the Hellhound. That's where you have the elevator scare. Then the third part is when we finally get to space in the last 50 pages of the screenplay, roughly. And once again, it's got some similarities. It's got that Aliens type, like, Merc crew that comes in. You got the crazy scientist, Frankenstein type dude. And essentially, you know, you get your climax. My issue is that I feel as though it's kind of disjointed, where you get it's called Bloodline, and you get the Bloodline progression, where each of them passes the baton to the next in the Bloodline. But I don't know if it's wholly satisfying as a narrative to me. I like it in concept more than I did in execution. I did like the screenplay. I enjoyed reading it a lot. It was a lot of fun. There's one point where, in the introduction, which is very entertaining, that was maybe my favorite part of this whole book, where Peter Atkins mentions that Clive Barker said, maybe while drunk, that this was the best Hellraiser screenplay. I have read the original Hellraiser screenplay at least once. I used to, back in high school, read screenplays as I watched the film, and I was real nerdy like that back when I had some hope of making actual movies. But I don't agree. I'm just going to say it. I think the Hellraiser screenplay is pretty much immaculate. I think the film is almost perfect. 10 out of 10. I think it's a masterpiece. I think it's a classic. I think there's little flubs here and there. The dragon at the end. I'm trying to think. There's a few corny effects that just really just hold it back for me. But I absolutely adore the first Hellraiser. And the second, I think, is one of the most entertaining horror sequels of all time. It's the Aliens, or the Phantasm 2 of the Hellraiser series, and I absolutely love it. It's a complete funhouse in hell. And third one, cheesy fun. Fourth one, cheesy fun. I like it a little bit more than the third, personally. But yeah, I think if you're like a big fan of Hellraiser like I am, you know, one of the people that read the Scarlet Gospels, maybe with people like me that enjoyed it, which might get me in trouble, might get banned from YouTube for saying that out loud, I would recommend this book. I think it's a quick read. It's a fun read. In my experience, typically screenplays take as long to read as it takes to watch the movie. Pretty nearly. I don't want to like give away like much of I won't show you the pages. I don't know if that's allowed or whatever. I'm not going to look it up, but not many words per page. I mean, it really, they use their spaces. It's got big font. It is a breeze. And if you're just a horror nerd, if you're a Hellraiser fan, I'd really recommend this. This was really a nice surprise that I happened to see on my Facebook timeline. I forget whose post it was. I think it was a horror author's, but whoever it was, thank you, because it definitely made my October better, even though I didn't even get to read it till November. Pretty rocky October this year. Didn't get to do all the things I wanted to, unfortunately, but even just looking forward to this, finding out it existed, is definitely something that, as a Hellraiser fan, was rewarding. So I liked it. I didn't love it. Does it change the way I feel about the movie released? Not really. There's some wasted potential for sure, but I don't think it's like we were getting like The Godfather Part 2, but then they dropped it down to like, I don't know, some typical movie or whatever, some cash grab. I think it would have been a fun time. It reminded me a lot of Puppet Master 4, I think it was. No, Puppet Master 3. I apologize. The one where you actually get to see, I don't remember, it begins with a T, Tulsa or something like that. Tusi, the toy maker guy. You get to see his life during the Nazi era, which is probably the best Puppet Master movie. It reminded me a little bit of that, which is pretty strong praise because I really, really enjoyed that movie. So yeah, that's my thoughts on it. Check it out. I'll put a link for the Amazon down below. And thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe to Longshot Books for more book content, more movie content, and lots of other fun shit.